Hey guys, and welcome to our latest video. Today we want to do a little bit of, I guess you could say, a tech talk, and we want to discuss a question that we get asked very often here at Kronos, and that is about speaker running, and also a little bit about the amount of time that's required. But also we want to touch on the actual components within a speaker and what is actually essentially happening when you're running in your speaker, and therefore what is the importance of doing it. So for anyone that obviously isn't familiar with speaker running, when we talk about running in a speaker, what we mean is essentially trying to get signal through the loudspeaker when it's new to try and allow the components essentially to bed in. And when we talk about time scales, we would recommend at least 100 to 150 hours of good medium to hard volume playing to really get the drivers moving, to get the tweeter moving, before you actually sit down and essentially judge a speaker. Because really before that, the sound you're getting is nothing like what the speaker is capable of doing. It's very, very much an incorrect sound as such. And what most people will find when they get a brand new speaker is they tend to be quite bright, they can be quite boomy in the bass, or they can actually be both. Those are the key things that most people will find with a brand new speaker. And we will talk shortly about why that happens when we discuss some of the components within the driver and the speaker. But obviously, if you're getting that brightness or that boomy bass, that is going to be very off-putting. And that is why speaker running is so essential. And unfortunately, there is no real shortcuts. There is no real kind of way around that. You just unfortunately have to give the speaker the time to bed in. But the advantage with it as well is you will hear a progression and you will hear it getting better and better and better. It will of course hit a point which essentially will be its optimal, where you will stop hearing the improvements, but that is the speaker then fully running and essentially giving you the best it can. And really it's at that point that you can sit back and really judge a speaker and its performance. But unfortunately, up to that point, you are essentially not giving it a chance to really shine, essentially. And that is why speaker running is so, so important. And there's a lot of things in hi-fi that people are skeptical about, but speaker running is generally one that is universally accepted. There is a need for doing it. But one of the challenges we often face as a dealer, which is completely understandable, is many times customers get a speaker and say, for example, they're listening to it for about a week, they're not getting the results they'd hoped for, and they then begin to panic a little bit. And that is normally because, say, for example, they're worried about their 14-day return period, and they're worried about being able to get that speaker back to us within 14 days to either get an exchange or a refund. And what we try to do here at Kronos is the problem with that system and that law is it's great if, for example, you're running a clothing shop, because you can send out a t-shirt, for example, and that t-shirt will either fit or not fit. It's kind of black and white in that sense. With a speaker, you're trying to get it running on time. And especially with higher end speakers as well, it's not really designed for that purpose, that law. And it's sort of the same, I guess you could say, with car industry. You get a brand new car, it's very hard to say whether or not that car is something you like or don't like within 14 days. Speakers are exactly the same. And what we try to do here at Kronos is, if you're having any problems within the first 14 days or you're just really concerned, just contact us. We are more than happy to chat through it, because sometimes it may be something else in your system, but 99 times out of 100 it is just a run-in situation. And we always try to work with customers, and this is one of the reasons we've won so many awards, is that we try to work with you guys and we try to allow you to get time to run the speaker in before making a decision or worrying about what may happen. So just contact us. We can always discuss it. We can try and figure out ways and means to give you more time to get used to the speaker, to let the speaker run in, and then you can make a more informed decision of whether the speaker is right for you or not. But getting back a little bit more to speaker running and what it's all about. So for example, here we have a completed fully built speaker, and what you'll see here is, of course, this is a main driver of a speaker which we're all very familiar with. Obviously, for a speaker to make noise, it has to move. It has this in and out movement. But as you can see here, it has a rubber seal. Now that rubber seal obviously has to be able to move for this speaker to work. Now what you tend to find is when speakers are brand new, this rubber can be extremely stiff. And if that rubber is stiff, then the driver is not moving as freely as you want. And what you can tend to find is there's a harshness to the sound, and that's where that brightness is coming in that I mentioned before. That brightness then is you're not really getting as what the speaker's capable of doing. And as well as that, the tweeter, for example, this fine here, obviously it's a built-in tweeter, but say with the diapason here where we have a separate tweeter and driver, that tweeter is going to run in much, much quicker than the bass driver. It's obviously physically smaller, and the way it's designed, it doesn't require just as much running time. So therefore, the tweeter is very dominant compared to the bass unit, for example. And therefore, you're getting all the highs, but you have no mids or basses to kind of control those highs. And that's where you're getting that brightness again coming through. The other challenge you have is that high frequencies will travel faster than low frequencies. And the other thing is a low frequency will travel a longer distance. That's why, for example, if you walk past a nightclub, you can hear the bass booming, but you can't hear any vocals. It's essentially, that's the theory. And the problem then that you have is when that bass driver is not able to move, it's not running, it's not free and flexible to move, then that's where you can get that boomy bass, because it's actually it's just not getting that freedom to move. Then you've got this high frequency coming. That's quite sharp because there's no weight behind those vocals, and there's no depth to the sound. Then you've got the bass unit, which is not really producing the bass that the speaker is capable of, and that's just because the components are not fully bedded in. It's like most things in life. Anything that has a moving part needs time to bed in. Same as an engine in a car, it needs time to bed in. This is why you always have a service after so many miles, because that oil needs changes, because the parts have now bedded in that needs a thicker oil, for example. And anything with moving parts just needs some time. And as well as that, we have other components within the speaker as well. So as before we discussed, obviously you have your main cone and the rubbers obviously that are required to let that move. Inside the driver here we have what's called a spider. And this spider is essentially quite a thick material that is relatively rigid. And the idea behind the spider is essentially this is, in most layman's terms, is for control. It's essentially make sure that the cone stays centralized, but it also helps with the rebound of the driver. It stops how far the driver can move in and out. If this is too thin, the driver can come out much, much too far. Too thick, the driver can't move enough. But again, this needs movement. This needs to be able to be freed up so that the speaker can actually move in a controlled way as it was designed to do. But those materials just simply need time, and that's why we say about having medium to high levels of volume, because we need to get the drivers moving. When you're doing low volumes, the driver's moving so minimally, you're just not really getting those materials moving. The other key thing is, of course, with any speaker, we have speaker cable and we have components such as terminals. Like a normal speaker cable that's used in your system, speaker cable will directionalize. So again, when you plug in your speakers for the first time, that copper and that current that's coming through it and that signal has to directionalize obviously from your amplifier to your speakers. And as well as that, you've got the likes of the voice coils in here as well. Those voice coils, again, they need signal through them. They need to bed in. They need freedom of movement. And there's so many things like that you need to consider. Other things you can consider as well are, such as the Apple one we have here, obviously the cabinet in a speaker is important as well. And essentially, of course, as we all know, you need pressure in order to create bass, etc. And again, the cabinet needs time to pressurize essentially correctly. And mainly that is because we need movement within the drivers to create the right amount of pressure to give us the right amount of bass. So you've got the cabinet, you've got the drivers itself, you've got external components like the crossovers and the speaker cable that need directionalized, and also you have your current system. So as well as that, your amplifier is used to obviously running a certain set of speakers at a certain specification. If we then change that specification, i.e. bring in a new set of speakers, that amplifier all of a sudden is dealing with a completely different set of parameters. And there is a bit of a synergy part really then to the HiFi system of that amplifier, again, bedding in, creating the synergy you need for the speaker to start to perform correctly. Now that's a lesser side than maybe obviously getting the components physically running, but it is also something to consider because unfortunately, again, it just takes a little bit of time. But the difficulty then we have is when these products are not running, like most of myself, when we get a new pair of speakers in, the first thing we do is we put on a track we know really well to see how good we think the speaker is. The problem as well is that our brain knows that track. It knows how it should sound like. And obviously when we have a new set of speakers where, for example, the tweeter is very prominent, but the bass unit's not got any run-in time, it sounds bright to us, and automatically our brains and our ears are thinking something's wrong. It's again not necessarily the case, and again maybe proves more about speaker run-in time, because as that speaker runs in, the more and more we will begin to recognize that music again. It will begin to sound more like we have it in our minds, and that's exactly what we need to do. And as I say, the importance of speaker run-in cannot be underestimated. It's probably one of the most important things you can do when you get a new speaker. You have to run it in, and you must give it time. We so often get people, as I said before, who have bought a new pair of speakers, they get them, they're going, guys, these don't sound quite like I thought they were going to, they're very bright, or like the bass is booming, it's all over the place. We've tried to reassure them, we've said, look, honestly, give them 100, 150 hours minimum, play them hard, get them running, and then sit down. And honestly, I don't think we've ever had a customer then come back and go, oh no, these are not right. You know, they've all went, that's unbelievable. And honestly, there's been occasions with us with certain demo speakers where they've had huge running times, and we've said to the manufacturers, you know, we cannot get these sounding right. And then literally with just like that, it was almost like night and day. The speaker just clicked and it sounded amazing. And again, that is just because all the components finally got bedded in. They got enough time on them. And all of a sudden it sounded like someone had put a new speaker in the system. And it is, again, just comes down to giving those rubbers time to flex up, giving the spider time to get movement, the voice coil moving, getting the speaker cables to directionalize. And the more high end you go in speakers, the more important all of this becomes, because you have much higher quality components. So the cable inside is going to need more specific time and to directionalize the material qualities here in terms of your rubbers, in terms of your spiders, in terms of your terminals are going to be of a much higher quality. Therefore, they need more time to bed in, to settle, and that is so important. So really, one of the points of this video is to try and explain obviously what we mean by speaker running, but also to show the importance of it. So if you do get a new set of speakers, do try and get them running. Get 100 to 150 hours minimum. It does vary between pretty much all manufacturers and all types of speaker, because of course some speakers have more drivers than others. But manufacturers will generally be able to give you an idea of what they recommend as a running time. 100 to 150 hours is probably an industry sort of standard, but some will take longer than others. So if you do get a new pair of speakers and you want to check, just let us know. We can advise what we would recommend for that particular model. There is obviously certain tracks, there's certain things you can do which help because they'll just physically move that driver. It may not be the music you necessarily enjoy personally, but it's just music that really helps move the drivers, which we use here in store to get speakers running. So again, we're always happy to give you those recommendations to help you move forward. And as I always say, this is a very, very quick video. Some of the technical details we're giving you here in terms of the speaker and its components are in very, very layman's terms. We can go into much more in-depth discussions about them with you. So if you want to talk more about running times, about any concerns you have about your speakers, about purchasing speakers, please feel free to talk to us. We're always happy to help. You can give us a call, you can email us, or get us in live chat. And we're always happy to sit back down and discuss and take as long as you need to go through all the different questions you have, and to make sure that we would always get you a speaker that we believe will work in your system, but also give you realistic expectations about when you can begin to hear the speaker at its true best as well, and work with you to make sure you have time to do that without any worries or concerns. So again, this is a very, very quick video, but if you'd like to hear more about this or learn anything more about any tech questions you have within HiFi, please always feel free to ask. And I hope this has been helpful, it's been informative in some way, and I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope to see you soon in the next one.